afternoon and welcome to the special city council meeting. Today is Tuesday, May 6, 2025. Let it be known that members of the council are present with the exception of Councilmember Alvarado out of town and our Mayor Pro Tem Olvera, who hopefully is landing in the next few minutes. So with that said, I need a motion to approve the agenda for the special meeting.
No changes or anything?
No changes.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Prout, a second by Councilmember Espinoza. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Prout,
Yes.
Espinoza,
Yes.
and Givens.
Yes, at this time, we're going to move into public comment. Public comment is for any person wishing to speak on any item included on the agenda or within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city council. Speakers are invited to speak from the podium. We ask that speakers are limited to 5 minutes unless additional time is needed for translation. Please state your name and address for the record. Public comment is open. Hearing none. Seeing none, public comment time is closed. We have one item on the special docket this evening for management report. It is our Lerdo residential project presentation for discussion purposes only. Mr. Lippincott?
Yes, council, after you requested to have a further meeting and a workshop on the Wonderful Housing Project, Wonderful agreed to come in and provide a overview and then have discussion on it, which you will hear going forward. And I believe Jed is going to provide the overview. Good to go.
Well, thank you, council members and city staff for the opportunity to share more about the Lerdo residential project today. We did have an opportunity back in February to come in as part of a planning commission session and present with some other folks and give a quick introduction to the project. So thank you. Today we wanted to come in and share more details and invite discussion today. So we certainly heard good feedback in the last session, have been incorporating what we've heard from the council as well as in sessions with the community over the last several months to continue to develop the vision for what this could become. And so that's what we'll be sharing today. We did submit our application for a general plan and zone change for a specific plan back at the start of April. We had a scoping meeting yesterday, actually, on the project. So this design that we're talking about will feed into that specific plan that we'll be bringing back subsequently to the council. So the goal for today is really just to share as much as we can in full transparency as we're developing the project with the community and answer any questions and invite feedback, of course.
Real quick, Jeff, for our sake, do you want us asking questions as you go or do you want us to wait to the end?
Sure, I think, yeah.
As we go?
As we go is fine.
I just want to make sure that way if they have questions, they know just to.
Yeah, no, I think, the spirit of this is the important things are what we should be talking about. So if I'm talking about stuff that's not of interest, we should, direct
sure.
to the questions.
Thank you, sir.
And maybe one thing I will say just right in the beginning, just to clarify, because we do get a lot of questions when we, and I apologize because I didn't introduce the broader Wonderful Real Estate team is present. So John Gwynn, who's the EVP of Wonderful Real Estate, Unique Lopez, who's a planner with the group, and Johnny Yates, who's part of the strategy team supporting the development of the project, are also in attendance and are here and can contribute to, so I'm standing up here, but it's certainly a team. One of the questions we get, being that Wonderful is the owner of the project and the developer, is this a wonderful housing project? And we've built housing in Lost Hills and other places. This is a market project. This is Wonderful happens to be the owner, but this is a housing project that's not for Wonderful employees specifically. It's for the community, and that's why we're working on designing it with the community. But I just wanted to address that up front because it is a common question that we do get. So with that, oops. The first map is just to orient everyone to where we are. The Lerdo residential project is the yellow area that's labeled the plan area. It is part of the broader Lerdo corridor visioning area that was presented back in February. This is about 600 acres that we've envisioned as a master planned residential community. It's about a mile east of downtown. It is aligned with the general plan or the growth for Shafter that seems to be preferred in the general plan today. Then you've got the Wonderful Logistics Center that's highlighted there in green to the south. It's just about two miles south.
the idea of that is, let me say this correctly, the focus of what you guys are trying to accomplish is specific for the job center, right? Making that connection of housing to jobs. Is that a correct statement?
It is certainly connected to the job center. I think, the bigger vision here is about creating complete community,
Okay.
and helping enable that growth so that there's a good balance of jobs and housing, that people have good places to live, good places to work, and all of that works together, with the city. So that's definitely part of the vision. I appreciate you highlighting that. Next map, this is just another map that's a little bit more of a general plan view. So I think part of the purpose of this is, we're wanting to work in tandem with that process to create a smart, responsible growth plan that works with the city's general plan. So, our area would be part of sort of where the future residential growth is going. Our plan area is in the darker yellow. There's other residential envisioned to the west and to the south of Lerdo there. So I think there's sort of a cohesive vision that Shafter's articulated for what they want to do, and we want to be a part of that and invest and help, stimulate that. Last time we talked to the council, we heard feedback about, as we're thinking about the growth of the community, we want to ensure that it's done in a connected way. We certainly don't want to have 2 Shafters or 3 Shafters. We want, one community. We heard that loud and clear. We don't want to fall into traps that we've seen happen in other areas. And so it's important that the Lerdo residential project's an extension of the core of Shafter, both physically and culturally. One of the pieces of that's highlighted here is it's important to have good connections into the city. So working with the city on improving pedestrian and bike connections to downtown, to the high school, to the sports park, I think are all, important pieces of creating that connection. There was some discussion, I think, that I participated in on the last GPAC that talked about Cherry Avenue. It seemed like the GPAC was advocating for a depressed Cherry Avenue below grade, which is certainly a more expensive design option, but I think has a lot of merit to be considered in terms of, fostering that ability to create connectivity across the city east-west, and certainly for other reasons too. So that was part of the recent discussion. There's a slide that's missing in here, so maybe I'll just talk. I don't know if there's a way to go off this slide, but before we talk about this sort of busier slide here, one slide that didn't make it into the deck, but a big part of the process here has been for the wonderful team really just trying to understand the needs of the community and running a big listening tour over the last 9 months. So all of what you're going to see today that's being presented in the vision here is based on input that we've received by socializing the project with the community. So going back about 9 months ago is when we kicked this effort off. We had a big public workshop at the Ford Theater in November of last year, and a number of folks attended that. I think we had almost 100 folks in the room, sharing input. Since then, we've run several small group sessions, larger group sessions. We ran a young adult focus group. We've worked with an extension of the Shafter Women's Club. We've had another session with business leaders, church leaders, educators, really just trying to make as many opportunities as we can to invite folks to, have some voice in the project. So if there's anybody who feels like they haven't had an ability to talk to us, we'd certainly welcome, anyone and everyone to be a part of contributing to this. So that's a big priority for us. We are having another public workshop on May 22nd at the Ford Theater again on Thursday evening from 6 to 8, and the whole public is welcome to attend that one as well. So I just wanted to highlight that, and I apologize because this is kind of a busy slide, but if you just sort of ignore all the words that are written there, the point of this slide was that, as we've been talking to the community and listening to perspectives on housing and what the future Shafter should look like, there's certainly not one single answer. and so I think this framework has been helpful for us in terms of thinking about there's a diversity of needs across the community, and one way to think about it is just based on, who the community is, who we are, and where people are at in different life stages. So it's sort of, starting on the left side of the graphic and talking about younger folks or recent graduates or younger couples. You know, that's a very different segment with different needs when it comes to housing. And so we've talked to folks, as I mentioned, we ran a young adult focus group. And one of the things that we heard is if you're, you know, a young person looking to rent a place in Shafter, that's essentially an impossible task. We heard there's a woman named Alicia Avendano who kind of shared a story with us where she'd gone to college, wanted to come back and was looking for a place to rent and basically fully struck out. And it was only by the grace of finding a friend who happened to have space that, you know, she would never have otherwise found if she was looking on the market. So there's, you know, that really, I think, brought to life, you know, needs around that segment for us. And there was also, we also read a story this week. There was an article in the Wall Street Journal that talked a little bit about just Gen Z and perspectives on housing and what folks in that segment are looking for. And it was eye-opening to me because I'm not part of Generation Z, but it really sort of painted a picture of, you know, if I'm a younger person, I'm looking to really curate my living experience and almost like create my own mini universe in terms of what I look for. It's more than just maybe looking for a place to live. I'm actually looking for a place and a curated lifestyle that supports. So there was one person who had a, you know, apartment complex that had, they were listing all these amenities where, you know, there was a coffee bar and you could get a cold brew, and there was, you know, a study space, and there was a gym and a yoga room. And so it illuminated, I think there's, you know, there are some shifting trends in what younger generations are looking for. Another big part of that is also a mindset shift where there's sort of a highlighting of younger folks looking for more rental homes. Some of that is just the cold hard math of, you know, home prices are where they are and interest rates are higher. And so the math may be forcing people into that, but we wanted to be, you know, sort of aware of where the trends are and consider that in what we're building here. So, you know, younger folks have a specific set of needs. As you know, might get married, have kids, be raising kids, what you're looking for, you know, is certainly gonna evolve. You know, we've listened to families who are raising kids. In some cases, there may be 3 generations under one roof. Schools are obviously important. Having the ability to play with your kids, you know, living in a place that has a manageable commute, all of those things start to become priorities. You know, that the housing type obviously probably looks more like a traditional single family house, as opposed to with younger folks, they may be looking for more of a condo or something smaller that's less to take care of. So, I mean, another aspect of this framework is we sort of thought about families who are growing. Maybe you start with young kids, and when your kids are babies and they can't really move around, it's different than as you know, I have an 11-year-old and a 9-year-old, and I have, you know, their friends running around, and, you know, probably need more space at this phase of my life than I will at any other point. One of the things we've thought about is, you know, wouldn't it be great if we had a community that was designed from up front where your space could grow with you as a family and as your needs grow. And maybe I had a baby when I was 30, you know, and by the time I'm 40, I've got bigger kids. And in general, maybe my income has grown somewhat. And so my ability to you know, afford more has grown. So we've thought about different ways that could be, you know, built into the design and the thinking of this development. So for example, you know, thinking about the lot size and how a lot is laid out. If you build a deeper lot that's got space on it, you might be able to add an ADU to your home, you know, at that point when maybe you need more space needs. So those are pieces of what we're thinking about when we're pulling this through and what you'll see later in the design. You know, as you move in the framework, as you get older, and certainly the senior demographic is one where we've heard we have a shortage of answers for good senior housing in Shafter is something that's kind of come through loud and clear. You know, some folks as they get older may want to stay in place. Other folks may want to downsize and have a simpler place that's, you know, less effort to take care of. And so we're being mindful of that in terms of what we're considering in the development. So really what you'll see reflected through in the design is we're saying there's a diversity of community needs that we're hearing, and we want to reflect that back in the way the community lays out and the diversity of housing types that we propose. So we don't necessarily know exactly what that's going to look like, but we're trying to plan a development that's got the flexibility for those diversity of product types. Another thing that we're spending a lot of time and energy on thinking about as a team, and certainly, welcome input on this, is, housing affordability just generally is a huge problem. And so one of our goals for this is we would like to be innovative in how we think about driving affordability in a way that makes us accessible to the community. So just even the basic math today, I think the median home price in Shafter as of March 2025 was $425,000. The median income for a household in Shafter is about $70,000. So 425 to 70 is a multiple of about 6. Standard affordability metrics would say that 3 to 4x income is sort of the comfortable range of affordability. So even here in Shafter, where I think, we have affordable housing relative to other parts of the state, it is a challenge here as well, and that's come through in the feedback that we've heard. So our point here isn't to say that we certainly don't have a silver bullet on how to solve this. What we're trying to do is think about all the different levers that could give us some leverage in moving the needle on affordability. So just in terms of our brainstorm list, that's in terms of diversity of housing type. One way to make more affordable housing is to obviously build a smaller home. So we want to have some space, for that in the development. Being mindful of multi-generational family needs and designing for that up front can help support affordability. If I've got a space that's expandable and I can have, family that can take advantage of that can help. Lot size can play into this too, and this is a balance. It's not to say that the answer is just to make everything small, but creating a smaller lot is one possibility that can contribute. We've done some financial analysis on it, and we think that roughly speaking, the difference between an average lot that would say maybe 8,000 feet and a 4,000 foot lot would be about $25,000. So it doesn't completely solve the problem, but that is a meaningful amount of money. We do have some ideas around financing that are probably a little bit preliminary to go into too much detail, but there are creative ways to set up structures to make financing more accessible to folks. And that ends up becoming a big part of the equation, and something we're definitely going to do a lot more work on as we get further into the actual implementation of this project. Rental housing is an area that we're seeing, and I mentioned as a trend. I think there was a large multifamily apartment kind of luxury condo development that was announced in Southwest Bakersfield. It's going to be about 500 new condos. It's the same developer who's building Park West. There's, the Old Farm rental homes are doing really well. So I think there is a segment where somebody may be not yet ready to buy, and rental housing can, be part of, or one of the tools that we can use. Senior housing as well. So.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay, if you can go back a slide. Right there. Okay. The recent grads and the young couples, I could see them living together. Then the working family with kids and the family with grandparents, I could see them living together, and with single moms with kids. And then the mid-careers with no kids and the senior citizens, I could see where those groups would want to probably be more together than just montaged. Okay. So, is there a plan going in that direction as to how you're planning to set it up?
Yeah,
And-
when we get to the site layout, you'll see kind of where we're thinking about placing the diversity of the housing types. So when we get to the actual plan, we thought about it, I guess, more in terms of the housing type and where it goes, with the idea being, we'd have a little more dense product in the center, and then as you radiate out, it would become a little bit less dense. So we've thought about it more in terms of the housing type, but I think to your point, different types of people naturally gravitate. If I'm, the younger person, I'm probably gonna gravitate towards the more dense, affordable housing.
Yeah,
And then as I'm, needing more space, I might gravitate more towards like traditional.
because the one thing that I'd be concerned with is someone spends $450,000 on a house and then have apartments next to it, which I don't think is a good fit. So if you could kind of keep that in mind as you're going through your presentation and then maybe elaborate on it, I'd appreciate
Yeah,
it.
absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Fair point. And I think we'll get to that. So I'll try to move us ahead, and sort of manage the time. This slide has a lot of words on it, but, what we did with the input from the community and the workshops we've run is to develop a set of vision and goals. And so these are sort of guiding principles informing what we're trying to build for the community. So just to run through it real quick, I think, we've talked about some of these already, but connecting and being integrated to Shafter, certainly on the top of the list. Number two, creating good community-oriented gathering places is a priority. So you'll see there's a village center concept in the middle of this, which I think is really cool. I've seen it done well in Paso and other places. Being selective about the types of retail that are really neighborhood serving, that kind of support day-to-day needs. Being thoughtful about the programming of community services, creating good access to shade, nature, recreation, walkability, bikeability are certainly parts of this. We want it to be a safe, resilient, healthy community. We talked about the diversity of housing. And there's also a piece here on cultural expression and creativity as well. And that's an area that we've done less work on at this stage of the design, because we're more about, at this point, kind of laying out the site and thinking about the social connection. But, cultural expression, I think, will be a piece of this, and trying to build something that, fits the culture and reflects the culture of the community is important. So based on the vision and goals, there's some key concepts that we're driving towards. So there's 4 of them. I mentioned the village center, which is at the heart of this, and I'm going to go quickly because we've got renderings coming up that go into more detail on these. But creating a central, like a town square, for this area,
Like a historic downtown core?
not like a historic downtown core.
Just asking.
No, but more of a central place that's got kind of the energy, that's the sort of the heartbeat of the neighborhood.
Okay.
Is more the idea. Certainly not, replacing a downtown core. Building a walkable street network. We'll talk about this is laid out as a grid. It's designed to be walkable and bikeable. There's a greenway that connects the project end to end. And I think we already talked about the diversity of housing types, so I'll just keep moving. So in this section, what we've done next is we've created some design concepts, as I mentioned. This is all about just sharing with you how we're thinking about the neighborhood layout. We've got a series of renderings coming up that are intended to kind of bring it a little bit more to life, so you can start to visualize it. And so just kind of walk through what's here. So to Pete, to your question on, how the, how this community looks in total. This is the site plan or the design framework. So overall, we've got space here for up to 3,500 homes. We've got some retail and commercial planned in that would be up to 150,000 feet. Probably more likely lands at about 80. And then we've got different lot sizes. So if you start where the star is in yellow, that's really where the village center is. That's kind of off of the west main entrance to the development. Around the yellow star in darker red is where the retail is laid out. And then the lighter red around that is the denser multifamily product. So the idea behind that is to create a place with, good energy, community, to sort of, people and area that creates the mass that you need to have retail and, ultimately a thriving community in that area. So we're being, pretty intentional about communicating how we want the design to look. So if someone's saying my goal is to live in a, on a 12,000 foot lot, that wouldn't be the spot for them, right? They would, but as you radiate out from the center, there's 3 shades of yellow, which just correlate to the darker is a little bit smaller lot. The lighter yellow is medium lot, and the on the edges is the largest lots. So it's laid out in a grid pattern with part of the thought process here is to give this a layout. This is a big project. It's 600 acres. It will be, many years to build this out.
That's what I was gonna ask you, what's the time frame, what would be different now? This kind of goes out.
Yeah, I think, well, if you took the pace of development currently in Shafter, I think you could say this could potentially get built out in 10 years. Wouldn't be totally unrealistic, but I don't think it would be much less than that. So there's factors that we can't fully control. This is a market-based project, and so.
I guess, let me ask that differently. Looking at this in phases maybe? Or are we looking at this as just one phase, go?
No, definitely in phases.
Definitely in phases, okay.
Yeah.
I got a bunch of questions on this slide, actually. Is that okay?
Yeah.
It's definitely in phases. I'll start with the easy one. The solar farm on the top right, is that for a residential share program or is that for personal or corporate business purposes?
That's being contemplated as a potential community solar site. It's not locked in, but the idea would be if we put solar there, it would be for the homes that are in the community. And part of what we're doing in the theme of affordability, as you know, well, the state has a mandate to put rooftop solar on a home,
Right.
which is a very expensive way to do solar. It adds a lot of cost to put a small system on a home, and the way the net meter deals are structured now are not that economic, right? They basically require you to put batteries on. They're pretty expensive. Community solar deals have a much more favorable tariff. So if it was possible for us to do a project where we said it's community solar, it'll essentially net meter, it will create a real advantage to the community, then we would be open to putting a community solar program there.
Gotcha. I'm looking at Lerdo. So I guess as far as Shafter is concerned, Lerdo is more of an arterial. So I see 4 in and outs, if you would say, from this project into Lerdo, from what you guys are designing. I know initial stages, and 2 stoplights. But knowing where we're at with that right now, over 16,000 cars a day, if you're talking what? On average, assume you guys build out 3,500 homes, that's only going to add anywhere from 4,000 to 7,000 cars in that area, right?
That roughly sounds right.
So just that alone, you're over 20,000 vehicles. I guess my question is, can we look at, and that might be more to our staff aspect when we're talking about how we use this. Gentlemen, thank you for being here. But truthfully, that seems super aggressive to have that many inputs and outputs, although I understand the need for it because of what you have coming in.
Right.
It's just going to cause a lot of disruption to what's already happening on Lerdo. And the more areas for in and out is the more areas that we're going to see with accidents. And we got to find a better way of doing that. You know what I mean?
Understood.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is, traffic in general is a big topic of study in this project, and we're doing our traffic analysis now. We'll be bringing traffic analysis as part of the environmental impact report. We'll be talking more about it. So probably shouldn't go too far into the numbers because I'm going to have official numbers, but to your point, it is a lot of trips.
I just want to make sure it's looked at. I have this question on another page, but I figured I can do it all here because it's the same thing when we talk about Tulare. Tulare, you guys are looking at it as some type of future downtown connection. From let's say this right. From Beach to the Frank Kern Canal, let's just call it Driver. From Beach to Driver, we can have a 4, 6, 8, 12 lane, the capacity's there. But once you go past Beach, you are locked to a 2 lane, and there is zero chance of expanding that to anything more. So if the use grows, which it will, especially because we also have the housing tract that's coming in on the other side of Cherry and then moving towards the high school, right? Tulare doesn't, I know the intentions there, but I don't know if Tulare is really going to be a good feed to get in to that area, to get that connection made. And I'll say this, I don't want to see this end up in a Gossamer perspective. Gossamer, they've done a great job out there, but from a city's point of view, I don't think we did a good enough job at making it feel like this is a community. It feels like 2 different communities, right?
Okay.
And I don't want to see that happen here. So I like the idea, right? Tulare, how do I get you guys in? How do we get the historic downtown connection still to the city center? How do we make that connection still exist? But I don't know if Tulare is really the way to do it or how you finagle that. So just keep that in your mind when we're trying to go through that area, because I mean, John, you know what I'm talking about. You can't, once you get past Beach, you're stuck. You're in a 2 lane, and that's going to be a lot of traffic going that way.
Yeah.
You have something to say,
point.
please, by
Yeah.
all means, by all means.
It's hard for me to sit there,
I see it.
Mhm.
and I'm not, and I apologize. I apologize, and I'm John Gwynn. I think everyone knows me, so thanks for the opportunity. A couple of things, and we worry about the same things you worry about, and we don't necessarily have all the answers.
Right.
The Tulare connection, it says connection to downtown, and I've sort of complained about that because it really is more of a trying to draw the 2 communities together or making the 2 areas one community. And it never has been something that's intended to get folks into downtown, but made it an integral part of the core part of Shafter. So, addressing that, I think, is absolutely right. The one thing I would say about the write-ins and write-outs on Lerdo is that if you've been on Rosedale, no, everyone, we don't want to model this after Rosedale Highway,
No.
obviously.
No.
But Rosedale Highway at the promenade, so as you're going west on Rosedale Highway at the Northwest Promenade where everything is, next time you're there, just, pay attention because the road's widened out. They're all right in and right out, and the traffic through there really moves very, very smoothly. And it'll give you a sense of the possibility. That's kind of the only reason we've sort of left it this way is to, now it won't work as simply, getting into traffic and getting out of traffic, but the roadway's widened and you have specific turn lanes in and specific turn lanes out. So, I mean, those are just things, but this is a work in progress, and it's really, and what we're really trying to do is create a community or help the community create itself as it grows. And it's a lot of work and it's particularly challenging. So we need everyone's help to get there.
And I agree with you on the right-in, right-outs. I think there's ways of making that work. I don't know if those scare me as much as lights scare me.
Understood.
Yeah.
Understood.
Especially because you go up a little bit, where that west of Cherry, and you should end up with a light on Golds, correct, gentlemen? I guess I'm looking at staff on that. There's eventually a light on Golds as well. So there's additional lights that start taking place. So you have Driver, and then let's call this Future Connection 1, which goes to the solar farm, and then Future Connection 2, which goes to the center square, and then Golds, and then obviously on Beach. So there's a lot that happens in that space at a 65, 70 mile per hour speed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, the plan for Cherry and Lerdo is an interchange though. A separated interchange, and will be designed that way.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yeah, no, good comments. I mean, we know the traffic is definitely a challenge.
Let me ask a question. Because you've taken a whole section of land to develop for housing, and then you've thrown in some retail, you really are going to create another community. Because, we started out years ago with 1,900 homes. We no longer have 1,900 homes, but then we went out to Gossamer, started building out there, and you can see what's happened. So why would you come in and want to do such a huge project and not come in and develop even half of it?
Well,
I mean, a phase to me, you could develop half of this in phases.
mhm.
I mean, you've got farming out there and, leave it alone, leave what's there and just start with a smaller project instead of designing such a huge plan.
Sure. And I think we will definitely start with a smaller project. I mean, that's well received. So part of what you're seeing here is a big, full, long-term vision. And, that would play out over many years to build this. And,
Well, 10 years isn't a whole lot of time. I mean, if you're gonna build out this in 10 years, you're moving along all the time with it. It's
Yeah.
building a whole city.
well, and maybe I should be more careful with the timelines. I'm just sort of giving a rough, I don't think this is a,
Statistically speaking,
Yeah.
10 years is an accurate number if you guys were to go full bore. That's roughly 320 units, give or take 320 to 350 units a year. In the current state, we're seeing between 300 to 450 a year. So
Sure.
that's an accurate statement to be able to do.
And that's more where I'm coming from, but what I don't want to convey is that we have certainty over how this is going to play out. I'm not trying to promise or even,
No, I don't think any of us are
Estimate that.
expecting that either, but it just is such a huge undertaking along with other developments that are gonna come in, that are already coming in.
you want to address it?
Yeah, if I can.
Because it puts the stress and the emphasis back on the city of Shafter to supply.
And so a big part of this, and, some of the things that we think about, some of the things I'm just personally concerned about, is that as Shafter creates, jobs and opportunity and an economic engine, we know that so much of that effort ends up getting spilled over into Bakersfield. And so a big part of this is the way the community will grow and prosper and have better medical facilities and better retail opportunities and more amenities for its citizens is to grow. And so it doesn't have to be this big. There's other, and it'll be a market-driven thing. What we're trying to, what the goal has been, and, we actually worked with Ball Fans to come up and try to build some houses up here. It's to get some housing in the core part of Shafter so that there's things here for the residents that are here. It honestly does not, this is a plan that we can do, but the goal was to make it so that, the benefits that Shafter is putting into the region get moved up here
Right.
into the core part of the community. This was one way to stimulate that. The other thing, and I'll say this real quick and sit down, is that one of the things I learned with the Ball Fans development, because I was involved in it, is that as there gets to be more and more demand, the price for the land goes up and everything goes up, and pretty soon it gets priced out of, a lot of our local folks' ability to pay. And so with this project, we're trying to let the core part of Shafter grow, and do it the way the community wants it and create those opportunities. We can cut this off. We don't have to do it all. The rest of the community can, as long as it's growing and you're meeting your goals. As far as we're concerned, we're very, very happy. We're not trying to do this as an economic enterprise for the wonderful company at all. The residents aren't. That's not the goal. The goal is to allow this community to grow so that this community can have the amenities that it wants. And that's been one of the problems I think that we've suffered from, is not having the people up here. So we're trying, if Sills grow, other developments grow, we can hold back. We just want the community to grow in a healthy way.
Well, that's what we've talked about for years. And so I
No,
follow what you're saying, but I'm just saying why you came in first and wanted to develop such a huge amount in such a.
If I could.
Yeah.
Really quick, please, I want everyone to understand, it's not that we necessarily want all of that. It is, one thing about it is that if we're up here, we'll be able to make sure that pricing stays competitive. Our goal is to make sure every one of those family groups have opportunity for housing, and that it's done in a healthy way, and we do it smartly, and we're not in a big hurry. It doesn't have to be all of that. The goal really is that Shafter ends up being the quality community that everybody wants it to be. And we're really, it is an opportunity, and we can, through this process, we can say, okay, we're only going to grow this fast if that's what you guys want. You know,
Well,
that's,
it's not
it's
so
just
much
that
of
fun.
what we want, it's what we can afford because of everything that has to go along with it.
And I think that, you know, obviously, it has to pay for itself and it can't be a drain on the rest of the community. The water system has to pay for itself, the policing has to be able to be paid for, the fire has to be, all of those things, you know, have to come out of these projects. And so, you know, that's part of the industrial development and the, you know, the revenue that's being generated and how it all comes together. This should not be viewed in any way, shape or form, be viewed as a drain on the rest of the folks. It should be adding to, not in any way taking
I
anything
know,
away.
that sounds ideal, and you own the property, so you already have the advantage of the value that's not gonna change because the property is already in your hands. And so you're not having to deal with the added costs as we go on. I mean, it's there, it's yours, and you'll continue that. But
Which should help us, you know, have some control over the cost of housing in Shafter. I mean, which is a big deal. I mean, what happens when a merchant builder comes in? I mean, they're just trying to make the most money they can off of each unit. And that's not our goal at all. I mean, our goal is to make sure that, you know, people who, you know, are working and young families, we all know them. We all have friends, you know, in town. I mean, there's young couples that just can't afford a house. I mean, we're trying to find ways that those families can grow and have opportunities and advance.
I guess if you were the only development happening, you'd see it or feel it differently. But, you know, we're seeing so many others that are coming in that are all huge amounts. I mean, it started out at Gossamer and it's continuing
Well,
on.
and if you feel like you have plenty and you don't need this, we'll back off.
Well, somebody else will pick it up, there's no doubt
I
about it.
think that's right.
Yeah.
You just have to decide how you want
Yeah.
to.
But
This
for
is-
10 years, I'm just saying that's pretty aggressive with all the others that are
Well,
coming on.
You know,
I mean, someone even said to me, gosh, you know, we're gonna have to have another substation.
I-
And I'm going, oh my gosh.
I would say this to the both, and you're right, somebody else probably would pick it up. I think we're seeing a lot of growth in the core. You could be excited about it or not. Most of the growth that's happened in the core is based off of general plans, or I'm sorry, specific plans or tentative track maps that were approved 20 years ago, right? Those things are today finally getting picked up. You look at Orchard Park, that was a specific plan from 2005, 2006, right? So it's nothing theoretically new. It's just finally, hey, we can move on and start doing something with it today. So the developers are doing it. I agree to your statement. It's aggressive. I think looking at how we phase it matters, because if you phase it in the same manner we phased Gossamer, and let's say we started from the Bryant Kern Canal and then worked our way westwardly, then you are going to create it as an individual community. If you start it from Cherry and move eastwardly, it gives you better chances. So those are all the little conversations to have, like, how does this work? How does this not work? I think the ultimate game here is we have to communicate together. If this is what you guys want to do, technically we want to make landowners successful. If this is something you guys have a heart's desire to do, I don't think it's really us to say no. I think it's us to say, how do we do this together? You know what I mean? And that's, I think, where we seem to have more of the issues is we don't see the togetherness. So not saying you guys are not, this is good. But if we do it together and work together, then I think that makes more sense across the board. He couldn't help himself. Go ahead, come on, you can. Yeah.
Yeah, but ball fans, we're talking about hundreds of homes, or not even 100 homes versus 1,000 homes in a plan, so.
Right.
So now they're starting, which is really was the original thought about trying to do this is to get that stimulated. This app, we just want housing and we want the community to grow appropriately. This doesn't have to happen.
Well, I'm not saying to cut the whole that's not the goal or the intention. I was just questioning. And I think it's good discussion. I don't have a problem with that. But I'm just saying that it does open up considerations or the potential of what we need to have revenue in order to supply services that are needed in the community.
I do think we need diversity in housing.
Yeah, yeah.
The
We've
multifamily,
always needed diversity.
yeah, the multifamily aspect I think is really great.
Yeah, the housing for seniors. We've always talked about it,
Mhm.
yet it's never happened. So there isn't a doubt in any of that. It's just the numbers that are coming in, and they're coming in pretty fast.
The
I
multi,
mean, we're having to add an awful lot of employees just in City Hall to keep up with the potential growth that's going to happen here in just a year or two and four. I mean, it's just exploding.
the multifamily aspect is good because of the retail that comes alongside it. One rooftop with multiple units is different than one rooftop, one unit, right? And so there is a lot of potential for commercial growth, commercial retail growth, and even industrial. And knowing that you have a good job center, right? Whether I'm needing a full-time career or I'm a high school or college student who I need to work at a Starbucks to make sure I can pay for college, right? Having that availability is really nice. And I did like the slide earlier because I think looking at a life cycle of an individual is important. We have a lot of, Shafter's median age is 29 years old. Theoretically, in this area where you guys are building is 28 years old. And so knowing that that means that 50% of our population is clearly under how old I am, and that's not cool. But when you think about that, you realize there's a lot of that next generation that we all have big yards, but they don't want that. They may want the two-bed condo. They may want the
Well, let's go
apartment.
on with the presentation. because
I'm
that's not
happy-
what I'm questioning the sizes or whatever.
Sure.
That's not the.
Let me
that's not
finish,
the-
please. So I'm happy with where you're headed on that aspect
Yeah.
of it.
Sure.
I don't want to make it sound like we're saying no.
No, I didn't say no.
Sure.
either.
Okay. Well, I think all good discussion. We're obviously open to, we want to build something that's right for the community. And so
Yeah.
that's what this is all intended to do.
Just
I'll
help us
just-
get the revenue too that comes along with it.
Yeah, well, so I'll maybe say two
Okay.
quick things is one is be happy to come back more on, like, if it would be helpful to do more of the fiscal analysis of what does this generate and what is it going to cost in terms of services. We could certainly contribute to that.
CFDs is what I'm assuming, gents. Everyone's like, yeah, I'm like, yeah, you guys know what I'm talking about. It'd be more like a CFD, CCNR.
There's a ton of mechanisms we could utilize on this, and part of that's the side conversation. we're
Exactly.
having, With city attorney, so we can definitely look at it all open negotiation discussion.
Thank you, sir.
And then the other quick point I was just going to make, relative to the question of why do it at this scale. One of the things we're aiming for is to build something special. We've heard from the community, there's a lot of amenities that people would like to see. And one of the things that we're wrestling with candidly is just as we lay out a plan like this is a very amenity-rich, expensive project. It will be really special. Oh. Okay.
Okay, can I just make a comment? No?
Must have been important.
range from smaller, more dense to larger, less dense lots with the multifamily around the village center. We've done some initial work on just visioning what the product types could be, and this was really just more to think about like how lots could lay out as opposed to like getting into detailed architecture of the actual places. But you can see that it's sort of laid out here as a spectrum as you move from left to right. We're certainly all familiar with a lot of what the housing type that we have in the valley here is single-family homes with a front-loaded garage and a nice backyard. And I think there's certainly room for that kind of product type. It probably doesn't require a lot of explanation. But we've also started to envision, some of the different housing types. So a little bit of a different model that I haven't seen as much of is you moving to the right, if you have a single-family home that's it could potentially have the garage up front, or the garage could be in the back with space for an ADU. And that sort of, lays out in a way that allows someone to, expand their space, on the same lot. Cottage clusters and row houses are seemingly increasingly more popular home types. At least we're hearing. We had a meeting this morning with a gentleman who's building some homes and had a lot of energy around cottage clusters in a lot of different parts of California, building like kind of 10 block or 10 home kind of blocks at a time. Certainly, fourplexes, multifamily complexes, kind of runs the full spectrum. So we're looking at these different housing types. The idea again goes back to that, kind of we've got a range of needs in the community, and so not everyone wants a single family house and not everyone wants an
Choice.
apartment, but we want to have the full menu.
Are you managing rentals? We kind of talked about that. Are you managing rentals, not managing rentals? How's that work?
Yeah, so as far as the actual implementation, we don't have an implementation plan fully baked yet. So, we haven't been in the business of managing rental homes historically. So I think if I was betting, I guess I would bet that it wouldn't be us, but it would be a market-based program. So I think there's people who do that well, and I'm not one of them.
These houses, are they gonna have alleys, or is everything gonna be butted up to each other?
Right now, I think we've had some debate about what the right layout is to do it. I think the argument would be for not alley loading, or the concept right now that we're running with is not to alley load it. There is some discussion about it. Would you want to set up a model where you've got, ADUs that are accessible? Like if you look at that single family with an ADU, if you put an alley back there, but it starts to depend on how you define what an alley is. But I think we're more running with a front-loaded concept.
Okay.
Seems to be the right direction. Is there any feedback from council on what's preferred?
I thought the trend was really to get away from alleys.
That's the sense that I'd heard.
Mhm.
This is another, when we were talking about the cultural and social connection within the community, this is another way that, another aspect or dimension that we can think about is just how these homes are set up and laid out. So more traditional is you've got the energy towards the backyard. If you're intentional about putting more energy to front yard space, that is more conducive to being out front and maybe more social interaction. So that's a intentional choice that you can make or not make.
Not a huge fan of the detached front yardscape, right? Where the sidewalk separates the front yard from the, whatever you want to call it. Bottom left-hand corner, I believe. You'll see the greenscape between the street and the sidewalk and then the front yard. And I'll tell you, the only reason I question that is, and I'm not saying that's the route you guys are taking, but the question then begs itself is who's maintaining it? City maintaining it, resident maintaining it, rental maintaining it. If the city's maintaining it, how are we getting paid to maintain it? Are we going to maintain it the way we want to maintain it? If the residents maintaining it, but they don't maintain it, then who's gonna talk to them about maintaining it? You know, right, it's all the questions that come up. That's such a unique, we have a few neighborhoods here in Shafter, and those seem to be the issue. Some residents love it and they'll maintain it.
Okay.
And then the guy next door definitely doesn't maintain it.
Yeah,
Right?
I gotcha. Okay, so that space between the street and the sidewalk, what do you do with it?
Yeah, it's beautiful. It could do it, man, on paper, special landscape architects, it's a beautiful thing. Like, this is incredible. Look down the street, it's Hallmark. Not until you have to start taking care of it, and then it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
So just kind of questioning on there's a lot that has to come into that, at least from our perspective, is the maintenance aspect of it, and then trying to figure out paying for it, maintaining it. What do we do with it?
Yeah, great point. Thank you. Okay. I mean, just a final zoom out graphic. You know, we've taken lots of angles and looks at it, so here's another one. You know, just to talk a little bit in terms of where we are in the process, we've been sort of working through an iterative design loop, so this is part of that. And we're continuing that. We're kind of trying to wrap up all the design by May. We are starting our environmental analysis now, both for the residential project, and this is packaged with the expansion of the wonderful logistics center into one package. So that all of that environmental analysis work is underway. We think that we'll have a draft EIR done and delivered to the city before the end of the year is our goal. There's a lot to study. We had a scoping meeting yesterday, got a little bit of feedback. Much of the energy was around traffic. So by the, you know, we're expecting that the earliest we'd sort of be all the way through asking, you know, council for a decision on a general plan and a zone change and a specific plan would be, you know, sometime middle of next year, probably. We put May 2026 as our target. So that's where we are. We're kind of in the middle, and you know, we certainly appreciate all the feedback and welcome any other questions.
Very good. Council, any other questions? I also want to make sure from a public's point of view, if you guys have any public comment in this moment, you guys want to have questions or comments in regards to it, by all means, please come up and address that. We want to make sure that you guys are heard on this one. I know we did public comment earlier on it, but now that you guys have kind of digested or trying to digest what you've seen, if you guys have comments on it, we want to make sure that we give that space for you too. And then I presume for both the wonderful team and city staff, if there's additional questions from residents, whether they're watching online, playing back on YouTube later, or in the audience with us, there's some way of communicating. You're dying to get up here and say something, and I see it on your face. If there's some way of communicating with both teams.
Any questions, send them to the city clerk or to the front desk, and we'll get them over to Wonderful.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Gwynn.
The one thing I want to emphasize is this is different than a merchant developer wanting to come in. We are very receptive to the desires of the community. If you want very small, then we have to think about that. If you want it, how this actually fits into the overall growth of the community, we absolutely want this to make Shafter stronger. We're not proposing a project because we want to build houses and this is what we want to do. It was really originally envisioned because we thought the need was here, but wherever the community wants to take this is where it has to be affordable and it has to work, but we're not saying we have to build all of this or any other piece to it. And there's a whole array of options about how we actually, pay for the services and how they come together. And to give you an example, if any of you, so like the strip between the sidewalk and the street, if any of you have been in Highgate, and if you haven't, I'd be happy to take you over there, but it's a gated community, so it's a little bit different, but it has a lot of those kinds of landscaping amenities in it, and the HOA in Highgate, and it's very, very richly done. And the HOA in there is $175 a month. And so, with that, there's pools and clubhouses and all of that, and that strip in there gets paid, the maintenance on that gets paid for through that HOA, and so those things. So we're really just trying to address all of those things, and we're not at all here saying this is what we want to do and we want to talk you into it.
Yeah.
That's not it, not at all. So,
Thank you.
Well, you can't deny the fact, Shafter has a need to grow, but it just concerns me right now. And I think you understand where I'm coming from. It concerns me that we can satisfy the growth that can happen so quickly
no, and
for a lot of reasons.
we really are very sensitive to the cost.
By all means, please, if you can, please. I know. Mike doesn't pick up very well over there.
This really isn't a question. It's just a thought that went through my head, is that there's some of that areas of the development, I mean, it looks really neat, but some of them have so high density of people living together that the thought that went through my head is there's going to be a lot of parking on the street, and it could potentially, and then where do you put your trash can? So I was just like, it takes away from the beauty when you see all these cars. So I don't know. It's just a thought of, okay, figuring out the parking before we even get there, you know,
It's
You
it's a
have
great
these-
comment because they're
a
in the
lot
middle
of
of that
these
design too.
multifamily duplexes and stuff, and where does, you know, planning that ahead of time. So,
Yeah, because if you've
Absolutely.
gone to Gossamer Grove, you can see the parking is an issue out there.
so it's just a thought.
It is.
It's not mandatory. Okay, yeah, please, by all means. Will you give your?
Michelle McManus. On the slide, it says 521, but you said 522 for the meeting? Okay, 522. Okay, so I just want to make sure, go write it down on my calendar. And so I appreciate the city council asking all the questions. We're all, you know, we live in Shafter because we like it. And so I appreciate you guys working hard to make sure that this fits into our goals and where we want to be with Shafter. So thank you.
Thank you. Very good. Any other comments? All right, with that, again, this is just for discussion purposes, and there is no other items for the docket for this evening. I'm going to entertain a motion in a second for adjournment, please.
I'll motion.
Do I have a second
Yes,
to
sir.
adjourn? All right, I have a motion by Councilmember Espinoza, second by Councilmember Prout. All those in favor with adjourning for the evening, saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
All those, same sign opposed, hearing none, adjourned at 5:39 PM.